Right, so yesterday Phil did arrive yesterday to get started on the installation of the sail bag, the mainsail installation. We didn't get everything done yesterday, some of it had to be done today, but the big boat list item which just sprang up out of nowhere yesterday was my dinghy repair, or rather my outboard repair. I didn't use the outboard in about 2 months, and I made the rookie mistake, which I am, I'm a rookie, of leaving fuel sitting in the outboard for a few months, and that ended up gumming up the whole system. And I only know now that that was actually the problem, but the consequence of my mistake was that I had to tear down, or I ended up tearing down the carburetor at least 4 or 5 times and putting it back together again. I stripped down my fuel pump, cleaned it out, and put that back together again. And as I was going along, I would get all of these little telltale signs that this viscous white fluid would seep out of the bottom drainage hole in my carb. This little set screw that you undo at the bottom of the carburetor and that's actually to remove any sort of debris or sediment from the fuel. And every time I opened it, this viscous white fluid would come out, would flush out alongside with the fuel. And I ended up having to flush my whole fuel line, and the flushing method was fairly simple. I pretty much just put a rag over the hole for the fuel tank where you top up the fuel, and blew into it after I'd removed the fuel line from the carburetor, and that just basically flooded a bunch of fuel through the whole system, through the fuel lines. And as the fuel was coming out, I could actually see, I was catching it in my hand, letting it run through my fingers, and I could see at the bottom of my palm these globs of white viscous, it's almost like what you would see what would happen if you pour cooking oil into water. Just these gelatinous blobs, white blobs, settled at the bottom of the fuel. And after I'd gotten all of that stuff out, I put back together everything, started up the engine, and it ran smoothly. The dinghy, the outboard is running so well now. For the first time since I got this new dinghy, I'm actually able to get it up on a plane, which is a massive plus for me. It means that I can anchor out a little bit further from where I necessarily would have to. I don't need to try and sneak in as close as possible to the dinghy dock or to the beach landing. Can be a bit further out. Also means that I can make further trips simply by being able to go faster. So when Phil arrived yesterday, he couldn't actually get everything that needed to get done. We basically ran out of time. The weather moved in, it started raining in the evening, and we only just managed to get the mainsail up, and then we ended up adding the sail bag on top of that. The sail bag looks really nice. I'm extremely happy with it. The only problem with the mainsail is that when Jamie took the measurements, the luff on the mainsail, he took the measurement slightly too long. So the mainsail is too long for the luff section. So we need to probably lob off the top triangle and shorten the mainsail a little bit. It's going to require some surgical hot knifing by an expert, which Phil is. So I'm quite confident that he'll be able to get it done. The downside of not having good luff tension, I guess, is that you load up the cars on the track, and that when your sail is deployed, that you end up with these little tension lines on the car, so you can see that the cars are actually carrying a lot of the load, which should actually go into the luff, so that you tension up the luff and then the luff carries the tension. Anyway, so not a big deal. The only other thing that we actually did was to also install one of the spare genoas that I had, and I'm happy with that as well. There is no the new Genoa, or like the old, it's an old Genoa. I don't even know what year it dates from. It's most likely 10 years old, but it's almost never been used, and it's really just been sitting in the cockpit locker. So it's hardly used, and maybe just a little bit faded with time. Dacron Genoa, and it doesn't have a UV strip on it, so we'll only keep it on until the new Genoa arrives. It's probably going to arrive next week. It looks like we won't be able to get my code 0 up within the next few weeks, simply because I don't have a bowsprit, and the soul and stay won't work because the halyard for the code 0, or rather the spinnaker halyard, which we will be using to hoist the code 0 at the top of the mast. The soul and stay is on the inside of the furler, but the Genoa halyard is at the outside of the headsail. So if I put the bottom attachment on the soul and stay for the code 0 with the halyard on the outside, there will be this crossover or overlap, which means that if I were to tack, I would basically overwrap my Genoa, which is not so nice. Anyway, it's just a small technical problem, and the solution is going to be to install a bowsprit, or at least a bowsprit type attachment to the pulpit, and that should allow us to take the code 0 bottom attachment on the outside of the furler. Yeah, all in all, it's been a good 2 days, apart from the weather, which has been a little bit rainy, and we managed to get a lot done. And if nothing else, Andiamo 2 now has 2 sails up, and she is able to sail properly now, which I have actually not been able to do, and I am massively looking forward to taking her out and having a proper sail. See you next time.